let's be real. Who doesn't love dark mode? It feels easier on the eyes, it can save a little battery, and honestly, it just looks incredibly cool. But, and this is a big but, there's a huge gap between a dark mode that's a dream to use and one that's a total train wreck. Getting it right is so much more than just flipping the colors. Today, we're diving into the secrets the pros use to absolutely nail it. You can just feel the difference, right? A great dark mode is clean, professional, the text is crisp, and everything is easy to find. But when you just invert the colors without any thought, you get this harsh, vibrating mess that's actually worse for your eyes than light mode. So how do we avoid that nightmare scenario? Okay, so the very first question isn't how to build a dark mode, but if you even should. Seriously, it's not a one-size-fits-all solution, and just jumping on the trend without thinking it through is the first and maybe biggest mistake you can make. Choosing dark mode has to be a strategic decision. It works wonders when you're going for that luxury, high-end feel, or for media apps like Netflix where you want the video to be the star. But you really want to avoid it for things like blogs with tons of text, or those super complex dashboards packed with data and forms. And why is that? Well, because a dark background actually makes it harder for our brains to read big blocks of text, and it can turn a dense table of data into a confusing jumble. All right, so you've weighed the options and decided to go dark. Awesome. Now comes the execution, and this is where most people get it wrong, especially with color. But don't worry, the pros follow a few simple rules that create a rock-solid foundation. This is the big one. If you take away only one thing today, let it be this. The number one sin of dark mode is using pure, absolute black for your background or pure white for your text. It seems like it would make sense, right? Max contrast. But that super high contrast is what causes that weird vibrating effect that gives you eye strain. And you can see it right here. That pure white on pure black on the left, it just feels aggressive. Now look at the right. That design follows Google's material design guide. It's a really dark gray, like #1212, paired with an off-white text. It's instantly so much softer and way easier to read. Okay, rule number 2 is all about your branding. That bright, punchy, saturated color that looks so fantastic in your light mode design, yeah, that can become a real problem on a dark background. It can be so overpowering that it almost seems to glow or vibrate, totally wrecking the user experience. You've got to tame it. And the fix is actually pretty simple. You take your main brand color and you create a special version just for dark mode. All you do is make it a bit less saturated. Think a little more muted, a little more pastel. Then you just test it to make sure it's still readable. That's it. Your brand still shines through, but without blinding everybody. So getting the colors right is a huge part of the battle. But the other half is all about creating depth and layers. In light mode, we love to use drop shadows to make things look like they're lifting off the page. But in dark mode, that whole idea completely breaks down. I mean, just think about it for a second. Shadows are just the absence of light. So how can you see a shadow in an environment that's already dark? You can't, really. It just ends up looking like a weird, blurry smudge. So instead, the pros use a totally different trick. They create elevation with the illusion of light. This shows it perfectly. Look at that drop shadow on the left. It just looks messy, kind of unnatural. But the pro approach on the right is so much cleaner. That card is simply a slightly lighter shade of gray than the background it's on. This makes it feel like it's closer to you, almost like it's catching a little bit more light. And of course, there's a system for this. It's brilliant. You start with your dark gray base color. Then, to make something look higher, you just add a transparent white layer on top of it. A 5% see-through white layer makes it look a tiny bit raised. A 16% layer makes it look like it's floating way up top. It's a super clean, logical way to build a sense of depth. And now, for the final piece of the puzzle. This is like the secret weapon that separates okay design from truly professional design. It's a dead simple system that makes sure every single thing on the screen feels like it belongs there, perfectly in its place. It's called the 8-point grid system, and the rule could not be easier. Every single size, every margin, every bit of padding inside an element, it has to be a multiple of 8. That is it. 8 pixels, 16, 24, 32, 40, and on and on. So what's the big deal with the number 8? It's not just random. It's actually kind of magic. It creates this amazing visual consistency and rhythm. It gets rid of all those weird random spaces that make a design just feel off. It also makes designing and coding way faster because you're not just guessing numbers. And the real kicker, most screen sizes today are divisible by 8, so your designs scale beautifully on different devices. And this is what it looks like out in the wild. That tiny margin between two buttons, maybe 8 pixels. The size of your main body font, a nice 16 pixels. The empty space inside a notification box, 24 pixels. The space after a big headline, 32 pixels. It's this simple, powerful rhythm that brings order to the chaos. So when you put it all together, the strategic choice of theme, the careful handling of color, the clever illusion of depth, and that consistent grid, you start to see it. Great design is never, ever an accident. It's always a system. Let's do a quick recap of those key rules. First, always choose your theme for a reason, not just because it's trendy. Second, and this is the big one, stay away from pure black and pure white. Your eyes will thank you. Third, remember that in the dark, you create depth with light, not with shadows. And finally, use a grid system, like the rule of 8, to make everything look consistent and perfect. So here's a little challenge for you. The next time you open up your favorite app, I want you to look closer. Ask yourself this, is what you're seeing just a bunch of random decisions? Or can you spot the system behind it? The colors, the spacing, the way things pop off the screen. Is it all an accident, or is it intentional design? I promise you, once you start looking for the system, you will never see apps the same way again.